While we're waiting for spring to really kick in, I've come to meet a friend of mine, the writer and gardener Arthur Parkinson, one of the most influential young gardeners in the UK. He's also the author of several books, including Chicken Boy, The Flower Yard, and most recently, The Lovely Hen Party. I've known Arthur since he was a small boy, and we've kept in touch because of our mutual love of hens. Today, he's taking us on an autobiographical tour of 3 gardens near Nottingham that have influenced his love of nature, hens and gardens. So, here we are, where it all began. Your mum's lovely garden.
Yes.
Yeah. Is this where you were brought up?
Yeah, so this house, everyone at school loved it because it was different to the terraced houses because it's stony. So everyone at school used to say it's like a little fairy tale house. But it didn't look like this when we were little because it was all just mud. Because my brother Lyndon loved dinosaurs and little diggers. So that would just be mudland that we'd play in. And we were escape artists, so the whole thing my dad had to fence off to stop us going onto the high street.
So what was the kind of spark that set you off on your kind of gardening mission? What?
I think just being allowed to get dirty, to be honest. We were allowed to crawl all in here.
Yeah.
And we weren't fazed by insects. And looking back at the books me and my brother had, it would be like James and the Giant Peach, which is all bugs. And then Beatrix Potter, Enid Blyton. I think just wanting to be around nature and not being afraid of it. And I remember, like, we'd go to nursery school and my brother in his buggy, he'd grab a flower as we went to nursery from his pram. And I think colour's a big thing when you're little. So, you know, you go to the market's just across there. Yeah. And that typical guy with just that 6-pack of Dolly mixture polyanthus that as a child you go, oh, I love them because they're primary colours. Yeah, yeah. So when you're little, it's all about the primary colours and almost like a child's drawing. And then as you grow up, you start to refine it. But those elements of being attracted, I think, to boldness are still there.
Absolutely. Brilliant. So tell me about some of these bulbs.
These are all kind of the relics of when I was in bulb mania mode when I first started gardening. It's one of the reasons I haven't got a mortgage, because all the money went on bulbs.
Tell me about it.
This is a big crocus flower record, which is huge, and on a sunny day it comes out beautiful. And they're just nestled into the root of this smoke bush and they just die back down quite nicely. Whereas the tulips, they're freshly planted, they're just pipping the soil. But because we've got bad squirrels...
I was about to say, yes.
Yeah, they're honestly planted almost that deep in that pot.
And you don't put mesh on top?
I think if I had a bigger garden, yes. I mean, if I were... Probably what I'd do, I'd put loads of holly on top. Yeah. But because they were so deep, I risked it, and touch wood, they're doing all right.
Okay.
And I love this buddleia, because in a situation like this, when that's in flower, it's just like a big mop that hides us from the road. Yeah. And when you've got dustbins and things, I think shrubs are really important. Again, I never looked at shrubs when I started, but now I would choose, you know,
I grow quite a lot of shrubs, actually. I find they're really sort of helpful, and quite a lot of them have good coloured leaves.
Yeah. Well, I love I mean, this is called hot raspberry, so it's not a feral buddleia, it's quite compact. Yeah. And I will cut it down to there.
When do you do that?
Probably
March?
April.
Oh, April.
Because I just love the fact that it's a little facade for my mum as she comes and goes.
Yeah. And a cardoon.
Yeah, and most people would be afraid to plant something that gets so big, but again, by summer, it becomes this wall of foliage, and then we've got these black hollyhocks that come up with it too. And so, yeah, rather than having a permanent boundary hedge, we're using perennials, so we've got echinops as well, which we love, those globe thistles that the bees love because they're like disco balls in the summer. And this is a very sentimental thing for my mum because her dad, my granddad Ted, was a builder. Oh, right. And he'd rescue these chimney pots off the demolition jobs. So we've got lots of these dotted about the various gardens of our family.
They're very beautiful, aren't they? Very architectural.
And Mr. Terracotta pot just slots in top and incredibly heavy, which is important, I think, if you're going to go tall with pots. You need to be heavy in a windy place.
So how did you start to think of gardening as a career?
I didn't really. I fell out of school with very little qualifications, and my dad said, you need a trade. Yeah. And the only thing I thought I could do in terms of training was gardening. So I went and did RHS level 2 and 3 at Nottingham Trent Uni. Yeah. Then that finished, lovely time learning all about plants. But then, you know, you do a course, then quickly it stops and you just back applying for jobs, and I just shopped work. I worked in cafes, and then I started applying for various jobs. I wanted to work at London Zoo. I thought I wanted to be a zookeeper, and then a job for Kew Gardens came up, an apprenticeship there, traineeship. So I applied for that and got it, and apparently the only reason I did was because I drew on the envelope lots of lovely flowers.
This is part of your garden now.
This little
gardening.
half moon appeared because behind us used to be all derelict buildings, and then they put in this huge road. So this plot of land came up. So while I was at Kew, I ordered the trees bare root, and they arrived in the post. And then I came back for a weekend, and me and my brother Lyndon, we planted these. I've got photos of us, little saplings.
Yes.
So people say you don't do anything in the winter, but you can plant so much in the winter, all these bare root things.
So are they all Wisley?
These two are the central ones, and I love them because in the spring, which isn't too far away, the blossom is real candy floss deep pink. And the honeybees, I don't know who's got honeybees in Hucknall, but it's full of bees.
Right.
And then in the autumn, these big pantomime snow white crab apples come, which are so ruby red and shiny.
And they're big ones?
They're huge. So if you want crab apple jam, I'll give you a carrier bag full. But I love them, and when I think of how small they were and how they are...
Yes, they're obviously very
They're nearly
vigorous.
10 years old now.
Yes.
And they're forming just this lovely canopy. What I want to work on more is an under canopy, because the whole idea was to give the birds a sanctuary from cats and noise. So we've got the honeysuckles and the pittosporum. And then there are roses that I pruned back hard this year in here. So it does become like just a big hedge, really. That was the idea of it.
And nice to look out for your mum.
Yeah, and I'm going to plant a rhubarb in here this year too.
Are you? Why is that?
I just want it to look a little bit like an allotment, like an abandoned allotment.
Right.
So that's the idea. I don't mind if it gets messy.
No.
But as long as there's like a little path and it's made to look like someone loves it a little bit. I think it's the elegance of mess meets letting plants be plants rather than shackling them up. And I've never liked that. I've never liked the whole tying in endlessly. And I think it's interesting when you train in gardening, you're made to feel gardening, you have to be a slave to it.
Absolutely.
And they knock out the romance of it, actually, and you're then terrified of things going wrong and diseases. And I just think back to the walks I used to have when I was little with my mum through allotments, and the watercolours of Beatrix Potter, of all that chaos and fun. And I want a garden to represent that. I don't want it to be uptight and stiff. And also, I love harvesting from a garden. I love cutting. So in here, when the roses are out, I'll wade in and cut all the roses off and have them for the vase. But because it's so messy and abundant, I don't feel like I've gone into a rose bed and ruined the picture.
No. So we're at your dad's house?
Yeah, my dad's, formerly my Nan Min's house.
Right.
Somewhere that I've known all my life. And behind us is a wildflower meadow, but it used to be very prim and proper. And now it's more wild and, as you'll see, much more allotmenty with chickens too.
Or your style?
You'll see. I wouldn't say it is my style. There's relics of my style. But it's another part of my memory bank of gardening.
And we're going to see some chickens?
Some chickens, some bantams.
Fantastic.
Don't hold me to what they look like, because they're not really mine anymore.
No, OK. Oh, look at them.
Oh. Very cold comfort farm now.
That's such a nice sound.
It's the perfect pitch, because no one's complained.
Yes. So these are sablepoots?
Sablepoots, Belgian sablepoots.
Yeah.
Lemon millefleur, I believe.
Lovely. Oh, beautiful. Aren't they cute?
With two cream leg bars who are quite runty, to be honest, but they do look very lovely with their little hats.
Very pretty, though, aren't they?
They're a pretty bunch, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
They're quite Dutch painting worthy.
Yeah.
And he's a very nice cockerel, but if you do turn your back on him, I think he does chase people.
Yeah. So, Arthur, what advice would you give to somebody who wanted to keep chickens?
Probably give that they need more space than people realise initially. The more space you can give anything, the happier and healthier it'll be. There's so many ideas of shoving these little arcs in corners of the garden. They have to become part of the garden, I would say, for it to really work.
Yeah.
And think like a chicken, because chickens want to be amongst the plants. They don't want to be in the middle of a lawn. That's the other thing a lot of people get, not wrong, but people think, oh, I can make them just stay where I want them to. It doesn't really work like that. Your whole garden will become chicken-themed. The good thing is, Roses are chicken tolerant. Most people want roses, and trees are chicken tolerant. But a lot of leafy, lovely cabbagey things that we like will need protecting.
Yeah.
I think definitely because of the avian flu, you've got to have a good run attached to the hen house.
Yeah.
So I think the nicest way of incorporating them into an allotment or a kitchen type garden is probably a fruit cage.
Yeah.
That's enforced with proper wire.
Yeah.
You can have the fruit bushes still in it and lots of leaf litter, and then the hens have got their own little fruity jungle. But then when there's a bird flu lockdown, when you can't let them out, they've got a nice run area. They're not just locked in. And everything up off the floor.
Yes.
Because if you have anything on the floor, shed-wise, you do get the rats.
You will, yeah.
But people often say, oh, chickens mean rats. I don't agree with that.
No, I don't
lazy
either.
chicken keeping attracts
Yes.
rats. I think with bigger birds, you need more than 2 hens to keep him happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people don't realise a cockerel has to be cuddled.
He does.
If you don't cuddle that cockerel, he starts thinking you're a plaything.
Yeah.
So pick him up and cuddle him and let him know who's boss.
This boss, yeah. Good, well, they've got plenty of space there, and they got the other ramp to where they roost and lay.
Yeah, so the floor's like deep litter. So if you just had a few hens, that could be a permanent run for the winter time.
Yeah.
You just keep bedding them, and then it makes wonderful mulch for the veg garden. This is like on a stage, so again, that really helps no rats at all.
Yeah.
My dad built this stage that the whole house sits on.
Yeah.
But then the saving grace for if you wanted to go away for the weekend is the chicken guard, this little robot.
Yeah.
Which is timed to let them out and shuts them in the evening. You just have to time it.
Yeah.
Or you can put it on a sensor, light sensor, but that works really well for here and my birds that I've got elsewhere. It means I can go away and they can still be allowed out safely. We've got it on a metal pop hole, so if it's really cold weather, the wood doesn't swell. So I'd recommend a metal pop hole.
Yeah.
Again, a badger wouldn't be able to bash its way through a piece of metal.
No.
And it's just about keeping them clean. I like to have my hens clean, you know, so they do get mucked out a lot. And just treat them almost like it's a daily ritual. Where the hens sleep is where most of the droppings will be.
Yes.
So just get a, you know, a paint scraper into the bucket, into the compost every morning. You know, I don't collect eggs without cleaning the hens out.
I use sheets of newspaper under their roosting pole, and I take them away every day.
Scrunch it up and chuck it in.
Yeah, and it makes really good compost.
Good compost.
Actually. And feed?
Feed, so...
What do you feed them?
Quite expensive on the feed, because I don't like feeding soya or anything GM. So smallholder range is what I like. At this time of year, they're on more corn, so they're warmer at night, because hens, as you know, digest during the night time.
They do.
And then as we go into spring, probably a layers pellet. So yeah, but they don't eat much bantams. So
No, they don't.
you know, you visit people who've started and they've literally poured a sack of chicken feed into the feeder. Again, if you do that, you'll get rats and wild birds. So if you can, just feed them what they eat per day each day.
Yes.
And I think that's nicer for them, because the feed isn't just sat there going stale either.
And also, if you keep the feed in a dustbin.
Yes,
That's a good way of keeping the...
Those old metal horse bins are fantastic, you know, everything's solid. Yeah, lots of fresh water, and feed and water in the house, not outside, due to not wanting to attract birds.
Egg laying.
Well, we don't get many eggs out of this lot, to be honest, at this time of year. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I think older hens lay a bigger egg, but they lay less eggs each year. I mean, most people want a point-of-lay hybrid bird that starts to lay bang on 18, 19 weeks, and she'll lay very well that first year. But the eggs, I often say to people, you have to realise how special an egg is and the amount of work that egg is. It's a huge amount of calcium for those little bones to draw out the body. So I worry a lot less about my hens when they aren't laying, bizarrely.
Yes.
But again, it comes down to the feeding, I think, and the grass is what makes a delicious egg. And that's why I say to people, you know, don't cram all your hens in a small little area where the grass just turns to mud. You need to look after your grass. That's why we've got these mud mats down. It's like you're, you know, a free-range egg farm where you've got to rotate areas of the lawn, I think is really good.
Yes, it's a good idea.
And they love the hedgerow bottoms. So if you are new to hen keeping, making sure your garden boundaries are well fenced is absolutely essential. Making sure the nesting boxes are dark is important, because otherwise the hens will start to either lay where they shouldn't be, or they'll start egg eating, because if they see an egg and it breaks, especially when they're young, that forms a bad habit. So, last leg of this Nottinghamshire pilgrimage, Francine, I wanted to bring you to meet my grandma Sheila, and this is her garden, which is full of snowdrops and also elephants, which are her other passion in life.
It's beautiful, yes.
Go and say hello to her, because she's inside, tucked up in her bungalow.
Good.
You know, my husband was a bit, he used to plant what he liked, you know. I love marigolds. I love the colour of them, but they'd come out. He didn't like them. So since he's died, poor Dad, we've
You've had what you've wanted, haven't you? We've gone through the catalogues together.
I've just done what I like. I've gone mad.
But you're really the reason that I love the countryside, because you took us to the countryside.
Well, we like walking, so, you know, and sadly I can't walk now very well, so it's a pleasure to have the garden with snowdrops in.
Yeah, the first thing, because we always say through the winter, you've got to hang on for the snowdrops.
Yeah, when they pop up and they say, right, it's time, you know, get ready, you flowers, and yeah.
And we started with one very big, dense clump under the magnolia tree, and I think 6 years ago, I thought, right, I'm digging this all up, and really split them so you've got 2 bulbs together or 3, and then scattered them all through, and it's worked, hasn't it? We've got more now.
Oh, I'm very lucky. I've got a private gardener, really. Yeah.
And my mum at the old house, she planted a little acorn, didn't she? And which is now an oak tree.
Yes,
up the road.
From Sherwood Forest, where the what do they call it? The major oak. It's protected there now. So she used to pick the acorns up, and she did plant one.
Yeah, and it's huge now.
And it's a huge oak tree.
This house.
And you climbed it when you
Yeah,
were...
we used to climb it when we were little.
Granddad used to say, come on down from that. It's a bit right up the oak tree. Yeah, still there.
And then since we've lived here, the communal lawn, for years we said, please don't mow it. And then in lockdown time, of course, they couldn't mow it. And it was amazing, wasn't it? All the wildflowers in this really old lawn out there just erupted.
Yeah, I know. Flowers I'd not... I mean, I know my flowers, but there were flowers I'd never seen before.
So since then, with a lot of emails later, we've managed to get them to change the mowing regime. And they don't mow it now, do they, as much?
And they leave it to grow wild, which is lovely, yeah.
And we're trying to get the yellow rattle established. So last year I bought some yellow rattle seeds from the meadows I know back in Gloucestershire land. And the yellow rattle's just started in this corner.
Yeah.
So we're hoping from that corner more yellow rattle. But the nicest, I mean, we get more bees and butterflies because they don't mow it. But on a summer's evening, what do we get, Grandma? What do we do when it gets dusk on the summer? What do we watch?
The bats come, don't they? Yeah.
Which has been incredible, because you never used to see them before. But obviously, because the grass is long and the bugs are coming out at dusk, we just sit here after Coronation Street and you just watch them
floating by.
It's just heaven. It's lovely. Well, the front garden, because Grandma sits here so much, it's nice to have things that are tall that wave. So we've got hollyhocks out there for this year, and tall alliums like that drumstick allium.
Oh, yeah, the alliums.
Yeah.
We've got an allium at the end of it. We did have.
Yeah, we pick them and dry them as scabertii ones for Christmas. So we took quite a bit out, but I don't remember us particularly planting loads of new things. It was just making it more... It's nice that it's kind of like an orchestra. It comes up and then it just carries on until the autumn, and then it's just a full-on weekend of cutting it all back and mulching it in late winter for the snowdrops to come up through the mulch.